Hi, welcome to New York City Comic Con. I'm Megan Laux with CBR. I'm here with Todd McFarlane. Todd, how are you?
Good. How you been? How's your show going?
Oh, it's great. It's going great. How about you?
Good. Just getting warmed up here.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump right into it. Yesterday, there was some pretty exciting news that was announced regarding your Spawn film with the Joker, Scott Silver, Captain America, New World Order, Malcolm Spellman, and Matthew Mixam signed on to be the writers for the film.
Yeah.
What about them is the perfect fit for this film?
Well, look, at any time you want to try and get something across the finish line, and we've been trying, you want to have as much A talent as possible, right? And so all three of them are very talented, but you know, if we look at them, Scott, who's been around, I've been talking to Scott off and on for a long time. He's very enthusiastic, but he wrote not only one of the better, I think, comic book movies of all time, but he, you know, co-wrote the all-time best-selling R-rated movie in cinematic history, right? Forget comic books, forget superheroes, forget even Joker, R-rated, period. That's a category, right? So he's attached to it. He also wrote a couple other movies that I was a big fan of, 8 Mile and The Fighter, then some other stuff. But he does drama really, really, really well and moves people around. Malcolm Spellman is interesting because I don't really go to a lot of, you know, superhero movies. And I know, you know, obviously he had a big part in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and, you know, writing the upcoming Captain America 4. But for Scott and Malcolm, I'm looking at like a lot of their drama work, right? And I would consider Joker to be a drama. But, you know, some of those other movies I mentioned with Scott, but Malcolm also, you know, done stuff like Empire, which is a drama, you know, TV show, and even recently, you know, helped create, you know, the new Bel Air. So it's interesting when I'm talking to these people. It's not necessarily about the superhero angle, which is good, and they've nailed it, and there's a lot of street cred. It's about some of the other things that they've done outside of that. So even with, you know, Jamie Foxx, who obviously had been a villain in the Spider-Man movie, to me, I was looking at, you know, his other movies and how he acted and how he would show sort of his emotions. And I would talk way more about their non-superhero movie of going, you know, that's why I think, you know, you sort of work here. We're going to be going, look at the next big piece of news will be, and it should be, I don't, you know, again, I don't want to keep teasing along the way, but I thought it was necessary, you know, between now and then to just say, you know, we have been working during the pandemic and we've been adding people. And not only we've been adding people, we've been adding big name creative people, right, to this otherwise already sort of A-list team. I'm actually the weak link of the whole bunch. So when, you know, we've got New York, want to sort of create a little bit of buzz, but the next one should just be, we've sold the movie, here's the studio, here's the financing, and hopefully at that point have a production date that we're all aiming toward. So now people go, oh, it's now being made, right? Or it's on the glide path to being made. I think anything less than that between now and then, it will be sort of a disappointment for people. But I just, you know, I've been saying to people during the pandemic, we're working. I just thought, well, we should maybe talk about some of the people that are part of it, because it's like, what? You guys got the Joker writer, the Captain America writer? Oh my gosh. Yes, we do, right? And they've been around for a bit. So.
You mentioned that you have a lot of A-list talent signed on to this movie. Is there any director, outside of yourself, of course, that you look at their work and think, wow, this person would be a great pick?
Yeah, no, I've got a list of directors that I think are awesome, right? And there's some up-and-coming young ones, and we'll get to that pretty soon, because at some point we're going to want that as part of the package that we take into the studio, right? You know, and make it as strong as possible, and make it as sort of low-hanging fruit as possible for the studios that are still looking for. I mean, I don't know if people realize, but you know, I mean, you know, Marvel's owned by by Disney and DC's owned by Warner Brothers, so they've got lots of content. But there are a lot of big studios that are still looking, right? Sony, you can argue Fox, which is under the umbrella of Disney, Paramount, Universal, right? Even things like Lionsgate, and then even all the streamers now, right? They're all looking for it, right? So they don't have what Warner Brothers and Disney has, which is, a library of 3,000 characters that have been established for decades and decades. So they're looking at a lot of other properties. And if you go down the charts and you sort of redact everything that's Marvel and DC, Spawn is consistently like the number one available property over anything else, year in and year out, right? Look at the number one selling comic book last year was a Spawn comic book, beating anything that Marvel or DC put out. Hollywood is aware of that, right? They know. So once we go in and we finally sort of make the offer, we'll find a bite and make the right fit. So it's going to happen, right? As a guy who does monthly comic books and does a lot of toys on a fast basis, the Hollywood process is a little aggravating that it takes so long. But when you compare it to other projects in Hollywood over decades, I'm in good company, right? I've run into people who've had things last and start and develop for 10, 12, 15 years. So I go, wow, I'm only 3-4 years into this. Okay, I guess I'm doing okay. Jason Blum, the producer from Blumhouse, right? Who has done some fantastic movies, and some of them have been nominated for Academy Awards. He said to me one day, and I remember I was aggravated when he said it, because I was like, I'm so anxious. I'm like, come on, let's get this movie going. And he turned to me and he said, Todd, a movie will get done when it's ready to get done. And I'm like, well, you've got 10 movies you're doing, Jason, of course, right? Where I'm like myopic because I've only got the one. But he was right in hindsight, because as time goes by, then, all of a sudden we add another piece. And then you go on and you catch another piece. And if I had gotten my wish and I had rushed it, then we wouldn't have had some of those pieces that, hopefully will make it more of a success globally, right? I mean, Spawn is entrenched here in comic books and to some extent even in North America. But once you start talking about doing and building a franchise, you have to start thinking about things on a global level. And when you do that, 99.9% of the people that will go to a successful movie will have never bought a Spawn comic book. And that's okay, right? We just have to make a movie that resonates with them. And that's why you go and get top talent. So, welcome aboard, Scott, Matt, and Malcolm.
Yeah, of course. Are you expecting this to create like a whole Spawn cinematic universe, kind of similar to like what DC and Marvel does, or are you just wanting to tell the solo story of the character?
Well, to begin with, we'll keep it towards Spawn, right? Do I have grand plans in the back of my mind? Of course, right? Do I have we're celebrating Image Comics and the Spawn comic book are celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. So I've got well over 300 characters in my universe. Again, they're not all the equal of Spawn, but they exist. Do I think there's a way to branch out from Spawn into the Spawn universe? Yes. Why? Because I just did it last year with the comic books, right? Spawn universe came out, set a record for Image, and then the 3 following up books, King Spawn, which was the number 1 selling book last year in our entire industry, and Gunslinger, Spawn, and Scorch all set some kind of record in our industry. So the expansion has begun with my characters, and is there a natural progression that could go on into Hollywood? The answer is yes, ... as long as we can launch Spawn out of the gate to start with, right? Because if that sort of doesn't do what we want, then it becomes a little more difficult to say, hey, we got a bunch of other things right behind it. If Spawn does what we all hope, fingers crossed, then yes, it'd be easy then to pull all those other ideas along with them and get into TV and animation and all those other things. Yep.
Sweet. I have a few fan questions to
Do
wrap
it.
this up today.
Do it.
What advice do you have for artists or writers that want to get into the comic book world, especially some that don't live here in the U.S.?
Wow, it's interesting because I employ a lot of people that don't live in America, but maybe I'm just a little aggressive. I think the other companies are too. Mm-hmm. Post your artwork as much as possible because that's where I find them. I go to like ArtStation or DeviantArt or Instagram, or sometimes people do little short videos on TikTok or Facebook. I'm constantly looking randomly. It's weird because once you start searching, then it gives you these algorithms give you sort of more people, and I'm constantly like opening up these things, going, and every now and then you find literally like this diamond in the rough, going, wow. And then I'm not even thinking like who they are, what their sex is, what their age is. This is the thing about comic books. It sort of equal across the board. And then you find them and it's like, oh, they live in Korea. Oh, they live in Poland. Oh, they live in Spain or something like that. So I don't care where they live because we live in a digital world where they can just scan and download their artwork and send it to me. I mean, the artist on King Spawn lives in Spain, right? So I've got an inker in Poland. I've got one in Brazil, one in Mexico. I mean, they're spread across, right? We even had people do covers that lived in Russia and places like that, the Czech Republic. So post it and hope that somebody eventually sees it. I think good art will show itself eventually, right? You can't hide good art. Mm-hmm. So if your art's good, somebody's going to have a need for it.
Yeah. Any chances of a Spawn video game, and what kind of studio would you like to see that come out of?
Here's what I know is, and I've been a little bit shy of doing too much ancillary merchandising stuff with Spawn, because I know that once we come out with the big news of Spawn the movie, then the floodgate's going to open up, and everybody's going to come out, and everybody's going to basically say, hey, we want to make hats, t-shirts, video games, patio furniture, whatever. And I'm going to have to then pick and choose what I'm going to do from the comic book version of those. Yep.
Awesome. Todd, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Megan Laux with CBR. Make sure to check out CBR for more New York City Comic Con content.